Welcome everybody to another video. If you're having deja vu, then I'm not surprised. Once, a couple of months ago, ArenaNet did a whole week dedicated to Guildhall information. And this week, they kind of did another one, except it was purely through live streams and showing off actual content of the guilds rather than just a million blog posts. Now, when they last talked about guilds, I did a big sum up after all the information was out, and that's absolutely what we're doing here today as well. I'll try my best, though, to gloss over stuff we already kind of know. But I certainly found that watching the streams they produced this week on the guilds, not just guild halls, might I add, but, you know, refinements to the guild hall panel and all kinds of stuff like alliance chat, where they discussed it here, it's a lot easier to understand exactly what's going on, rather than that original series of blog posts where it's like, oh, there's this currency, and this currency, and this currency, and this currency's been removed, and this currency's been removed, and this currency's been removed. And you get the drill. So today we're going to do a big sum up of that. I would like to add, just before we jump into things, the state of the current beta weekend event 3, because this is fairly big news, and you guys should be aware about this. The raids are not coming at all through beta weekend event 3. This does perhaps leave some space for a beta weekend event 4, or at least some kind of a stress test at some point in the future, because what this means is squad UI was horrendously broken. They tried to throw it back up online shortly after my video on the topic last night, after they'd already been taken off. They were online for maybe an hour or two and pulled again. And at that point, the devs worked on it until about midnight their time, threw out a message to say, look, we're really sorry, guys. It's midnight. We can't work on this anymore. We got to go to bed. They're going to be disabled until tomorrow. Tomorrow came around, and after a few hours of more hard work, it seemed like they just couldn't do it at all. A statement was thrown out saying the raids and the squad UI can't be a part of this beta weekend event. We're very sorry. But hey, guys, that's what betas are for. Don't get too up in arms about it. At the end of the day, it's much better that this is happening now rather than at launch. And the silver lining, perhaps, for you druids, for you scrappers out there, is maybe you'll get another opportunity to test your favorite elite specialization and get a little bit more of that interchange between you and the devs that the other elite specializations have managed to enjoy. Also, on the topic of raids and overall difficulty of this beta weekend event, on yesterday's video, we did some discussion about how hard the raids actually were, because it seemed that the actual little content people had managed to see before the squad UIs were removed seemed to be really easy, worryingly so. Well, my doubts about that have absolutely cleared up, and I want to clear them up for you guys as well. What ArenaNet are doing is actually kind of smart. It's kind of interesting. Basically, they have an idea of a really difficult boss that, as far as I can see, the furthest down anyone has got it is to about 25% of its health. No one's killed this boss, and obviously squad UI going down and stuff has impacted that and kicking everyone out, but nobody managed to kill the boss in the time that the raids were available, and it was a very difficult encounter filled with lots of mechanics. What they actually did was they introduced those mechanics to us slowly through some earlier boss fights. Now, these boss fights were much easier to deal with, some people even going as far as to call them trash, despite being legendary mobs, and it's just so that piece by piece, your raid group could learn the way various mechanics are working, and they'll get jumbled in all at once for your team to deal with it, like a ton of things all together. So it's actually really good design that I'm very happy with, and hopefully if we get the supposed beta weekend event 4, which the devs, by the way, have not mentioned anything about, it just seems logical they should do something like that, we can get that real raid testing going on. The other thing that beta weekend event 4, or the final stress test, could also address is heavy nerfs to the open world. I never mentioned this in yesterday's video, but this is a big problem that ended up getting a lot of discussion out of my stream today. While the raids seem to be okay balanced difficulty as far as we can tell right now, open world was made significantly easier. Specific spawns in story missions and throughout dynamic events were removed entirely, such as Mordrum snipers that you'd actually have to pay attention to. They were just flat out removed. In one of the meta events, a previously legendary boss that actually felt kind of fun and balanced to fight is now melting in seconds. And generally, the power level of all mobs has gone way down. They're far squishier and they do far less damage. Now, obviously, the big question on everyone's mind was, why did ArenaNet do this? Is it intentional? Colin Johansson did throw out a statement saying, this absolutely is not intentional. We do like the difficulty of Beta Weekend Event 2, but even if this is an accidental change, I find it questionable that specific mobs have been removed from, like, the story instance, and specific, like, hand-placed tweaks seem to have gone in as much as, like, a big global scaling issue. Last of all, as well, is the topic of break bars. Now, what they tried to address between Beta Weekend Event 1 and 2, where the Wyvern's break bar would deplete far too quickly and the Wyvern never got to take off. They've now gone in the complete other direction, and the break bar is scaling far too difficultly now. And even if you coordinate your entire Zerg to have multiple CCs and all use it at the perfect time to try and stop the Wyvern taking off, it gets about 10 to 15% of the way through the break bar, which is an atrociously small amount. And hopefully that will be tweaked as well, once again, before launch. So there you go, guys. That's stuff to do with the beta. Let's move on to the main topic of the video. That would be the guild halls. So, an entire week worth of streams. Let's jump into it. First thing I really want to clarify, this comes from me rather than like a specific thing that the devs sat down and talked about, is a question that's been on my mind has been, do I really give a damn about guild halls? I am not a guild leader. I don't take an active, officership role in any guilds that I'm a part of. And so the question for me when I was watching a lot of these streams was like, how much does this really matter? Like, if I'm not going to super get myself involved in building up my guild hole, if it's kind of like a short-term thing that just goes on for a couple of months after the release of Heart of Thorns, and then, I've got a guild and they have everything maxed out, how much do I really care about these upgrade systems they're putting in place and all the proprietors and the way that you're building everything up if it's just going to be over and done with by other people? Is this really news that affects me very much as a player? And I guess a lot of you guys too will be asking that you might not actually be that excited about a lot of the information they gave us about guild halls. But here's something I found really interesting. It was mentioned several times through different devs that to max out a guild hall, we're not talking a small little period of time that can be boosted really quickly as we currently see. You can just pay gold for influence and then spam the crap out of stuff. Because of the way they've done it, there's actually like a hard limit on how long it takes to finish a guild hall, to get it from beginning it, originally capturing it from Mordrov, and getting the final upgrade. And at the lowest of estimates that the devs have given us, they say 6 months, half a year, to get the guild hall from beginning to end. Now, don't look at that and cringe and think, oh, this is some really grindy, long progression. What this actually means is there's going to be a lot of time after Heart of Thorns comes out for you to involve yourself in that element of the game and be there at those big moments when new buildings get built, and it's actually been a long time working on it. There's a lot of opportunity for you as an individual player to look at what the guild needs to keep progressing in its guild hall and go out around the world, collect materials and gather and stuff like that. And so because of the time scale, 6 to 9 months could add, so 3/4 of a year, at some pessimistic or optimistic, depending on your viewpoint, estimations, this actually gives me a lot of opportunity to enjoy the system and actually regard it as a part of the gameplay, a part of endgame, rather than just something we fire and forget through and then that's it. That was really cool for me, and that's very much changed my perspective and how much I'm excited about what is coming on here. Another thing as well is because of raids, I find myself in a much smaller guild with far fewer people that I know quite well. And what's really exciting about the guild stuff as well is they're kind of balancing this around a 10-man guild, and that's about the same size as I have at the moment because of the way that the raids are balanced. And so what this means is when Heart of Thorns comes out, it's kind of me and my mates, like close friends. We're the ones building it up together, and my individual contributions feel like they mean something, right? I'm not in some huge conglomerate guild with hundreds and hundreds of people, multiple branches. It's like we're working on it together, and that community aspect and that social aspect should be really strong. So suddenly, guild halls have gone from something before this week where I was like, it looks cool, but I don't really know how much it's going to affect me, to being quite high on my radar in terms of a feature to really look at and consider myself playing with. And maybe you guys can think about that too. All you need is a small guild when Heart of Thorns comes out to maybe have a really good extra layer to what Guild Wars 2 is offering you in terms of content. Alright, so the streams showed off, first of all, a little bit of the initiative headquarters. So before you even have a guild hall, your guild can use the headquarters in Lion's Arch we currently bug our way into to get access to all the different vendors and things. Colin actually said in a Q&A he wasn't sure if the guild vendors that are currently in regular Lion's Arch are going to be deleted and they'll all move inside the initiative. What's cool about the initiative and just the guild system in general is all the NPCs have got a lot of personality, and NPCs back in the actual guild halls will refer back to their friends at the initiative, and it will be, I guess at least, a little like the Consortium where there'll be back and forth and memorable characters here. So from the headquarters you get access to all those regular vendors, but there's also an NPC who will lead you on an expedition to claim a guild hall. Don't forget that Heart of Thorns releases with 2 guild halls, but they can totally add more. And here's something really important, okay? Because so many of the guild hall systems are like supposed to be expandable systems. The guild team that ArenaNet set up, this was confirmed on the last stream, right? The guild team, a lot of the people we've been seeing in these streams over this week, devs we haven't ever had on Points of Interest or guild chat or anything before. These people on the guild team, they're not just like a temporary team that's existing because an expansion's coming out. They are a permanent team. Forevermore, while Guild Wars 2 is in development, there is a dedicated team of people who will continue expanding the guild hall feature. What does that mean? That means that potentially we can have new buildings added to guild halls, we can always be having new decorations coming in, seasonal decorations, and specifically new guild halls entirely can be added. Do you remember early in the week where I was talking about how they can add a random raid wing in somewhere in the world, and I had pointed out a specific area of the Shiver Peaks? Well, actually, given the size of the guild halls through data mining we've seen, that could easily be a Shiver Peaks guild hall too. So do consider that these people are in place, and we can maybe take it a little bit more seriously when they say that they're going to expand the feature than say when they said it with fractals and then immediately, as it would seem, dissolved the fractal team, right? That's not happening here. All right, so let's talk about the expedition. So how do we claim a guild hall? Basically, it costs 100 gold. And across the whole guild then, right, if it's balanced at 10 people, then it's just 10g each, right? So don't look at that as a cost as if you have to pay it yourself. That's very short-sighted. If you're in a 200-man guild, then it's barely any money each individual person is paying, right? You lump together the money, you choose your guild hall. Any upgrades you build for that guild hall once you've captured it, by the way, swap over should you want to change. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this. So the idea is that you could spend 9 months building up a ton of stuff in the Lost Precipice, and then you decide you want the other guild hall, and you just get to carry all those buildings and stuff over. It does mean that in the end, I don't think guilds will feel particular identity to a specific hall, because they'll be hot swapping a lot. Maybe if they force you to start from the beginning over, people would really value this as a big decision. It's like, my guild has this hall, my guild has this hall, and as more halls come into the game, it's kind of this exciting idea. They didn't go with that. They want it to be more accessible. That's basically Guild Wars 2 in a nutshell. But there's always that 100 gold cost. Not that I think it's really considerable on a guild-wide level. But the expedition itself is basically, as we heard before, a PvE battle where we reclaim the hall from Morgemoth. There's some story about the crystals, as we heard before. And they did give us specific numbers. They said that basically, Colin said theoretically, if you're really good at the game, you can probably capture a guild hall with just 3 players. But it's one of these things that scales. So if you have 200 players, which is the upper limit, 200 people in your guild all capturing it in the expedition all at once is also a possibility. So it's like this vastly scaling thing that's supposed to be, you know, kind of challenging, but don't think of this like a raid. It's, you know, it's just a memorable moment to capture your haul in the first place. Actually, a bit of trivia that came out on one of the streams. Again, from Colin, who just wrapped out so much information over these. It's unbelievable. He actually said that originally, the whole guild hall concept they have here, what they went with is a very social thing. It kind of exists very much outside the boundaries of the rest of the game. It's not a place you go to earn gold or karma or actually like participate content that you get rewarded in. It's for the social stuff, and they went with that because that's what they remembered guild halls from the first game being so loved for. But he did say actually that early on, guild halls were going to be a very different idea where there was actual content that guilds would go to play in these places. But they moved away from that. They kind of combined it with the idea of housing. He also said, you know, that there were discussions about specific player housing for the expansion. Did they want to do guild halls the way they did it here, or did they want to do player housing? And they kind of went for social player housing, I guess, through the guild hall system. So that was pretty interesting. And as far as like the actual PvE stuff, it's just the initial capturing. And then from that point on, it's more of like a town that exists separate from everything else. And that's why they've allowed certain bugs like being able to build jumping puzzles inside your guild hall, which we'll get to very soon. The first stream also, by the way, it's a little bit of a weird segue, did talk about something called the treasury system. And what this is kind of an advanced version of the current guild banks you have, where you can build the treasure trove and the deep cave, and people can just contribute a ton of stuff in there. What the treasury system is it's like if you need, and the example they gave was 100 apples, right? If you need 100 apples to build an upgrade for the guild, then anyone in the guild can donate their apples, and it goes directly into the treasury, and then it's spent directly from the treasury by the game into the upgrade. So there's no, like, mailing 100 apples to an officer who then might, you know, just TP them instead of using them where they're supposed to be. It just cuts out all the middlemen. It's like, if you want to donate stuff for the guild to build more upgrades, you just put it in the treasury, and it kind of deals with it for you like that. So that was pretty nice. Guilds in general, there was some pretty cool information. First of all, guild emblems no longer have to be built separately. You just get that the second you have your guild. We do, of course, know that there's an emblem competition that was going on. I think it's over now. In fact, it's definitely over now. And there'll be a bunch of new emblems that you can shine to have on your guild weapons, guild armor, and banners and so forth once the expansion hits. There are big changes to the message of the day. Now, the stream made it look like on the new guild panel, when you press G, they've changed that panel to be very different, right? More functionally useful. And they've actually, it seemed like from this panel, like they shrunk the message of the day down. This is the little area where guilds can type messages for everyone to see. So say if your guild's doing a scavenger hunt, you'd have in the message of the day, hey, we're doing a scavenger hunt. But the way it's currently implemented in Guild Wars 2, a lot of people just ignore it, and it's not very good. And the stream made it look like it was going to get even worse, because the box was going to get smaller. Well, actually, this was commented on by the devs, and the message of the day is getting improved in a few ways. Number one, it's going to appear bigger than it was on the build that we saw on the stream. Number two, the message of the day will now be broadcast to players when they log in. This was a very basic thing you had in Guild Wars 1, and the messages of the day back there were, guess what, really useful. You'd log into Guild Wars 2 every day, you'd see what your dailies are, your whatever are, and down in your chat box, you'd always have the guild message of the day. And, you know, that could change every day, and people would get caught up to date. I guess maybe when you rep as well, it could show the message of the day, and specifically, or spam it out again whenever you edit it. So if you make a change to the message of the day, as an officer saying, sorry guys, we're not going to run tech tonight, Joe, our only commander, he's working the night shift, so we're basically screwed, right? You put that into the message of the day, it will show up everyone right there, and they'll be like, oh, I just got the message of the day, and, you know, it can be a better way of updating people. Another big difference you'll notice on the guild panel is that now you can communicate with all your guilds all at once. So this opens up a lot of possibilities. Basically, the way the game works right now, you can be in 5 guilds, but you don't get to see their guild chat unless you rep them. Well, now you can set up your chat box to specifically show whatever guild you want, and just by typing /G and then 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, depending on what guild you want, you can directly chat to any one of the communities or guilds you've got out there. That means that, again, you can stay in the loop with all your guilds, even when you're still only repping like one specific one. That will hopefully loosen people's grip on, you know, 100% rep rules that they might have. And it also means that you could actually open up some more potential possibilities for guilds. You could have a guild, for example, that helps people farm giants. And I was in a guild like this for a while, but it wasn't very useful because I didn't want to rep that guild all the time. So because I wasn't repping the guild all the time, I couldn't see the chat when people announced they were farming giants, and then I just never did it. But now, when this changes, I can have like utility guilds like that. With the new map reward system, you might have a guild that specializes in doing that, and then you can be a part of that guild, not rep it, but still see all the information about when that stuff's going on and where they want people to be. Colin did mention in one of the streams, you know, this is actually a huge change, and I think he's absolutely right. This could be awesome. It's even a way for massive guilds who are at the player cap to create like different branches of their guilds, and then you can like rep multiple ones. And while that's possible, they did also say this isn't like the be-all answer for that. They do want to support those giant guilds at some point down the line as well. All right, next big topic is missions, guild missions. So there are a bunch of new missions that are coming with Heart of Thorns. Don't get too excited though, none of them are like new PvE missions. So current guild missions are stuff like where you do the rushes and you get transformed into a creature, you run around, you got to use the skill 1 to identify traps, right? These things you do for commendations. Now as far as PvE missions are concerned, there are no more new ones coming just yet. But again, expandable feature, they're hoping to do more of them after Heart of Thorns releases, but instead of doing new PvE ones, they're adding missions for PvP and World versus World. So these are now possible. If you're a PvP pure guild, you can do guild missions, which is kind of essential now because doing guild missions earns you favor with the guild initiative, and that favor is required to upgrade your guild hall, right? So what kind of things would a PvP mission be? Well, you need a guild team. First of all, they say you need 3 minimum people, but it's basic stuff that you can't do in custom arenas. It's basically you have to queue, right? But it will be stuff like, okay, the guild mission for this week is Conquest, which is kill players around capture points. There's one for playing Stronghold, and you get credit for this guild mission by killing the Lord and champions during matches. There's a guild mission for just earning lots of ranks. There's a guild mission for getting lots of PvP wins. So the way that the PvP missions work is you activate it, and you'll have a time limit. It will be like, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, we don't know. But you have a time limit. It will say, all right, as a guild, get 15 PvP wins in that hour. And you'll be able to choose easy, medium, or hard. And, you know, if you're a small guild, you'll go for the easy one. If you're a medium-sized guild, you'll go for the medium difficult or hard one if you're a really, really big guild. And you can hit these more lofty targets. So those are PvP missions, and very similar for Wild vs. Wild. Same idea. You pop it, you've got a time limit to do a certain amount of stuff. Easy, medium, and hard. And you'll have, like, the Wild vs. Wild challenge they explained. And one of the examples they gave here was, because, of course, we've got a whole new Borderlands to play with too, it's collecting power cores in the Oasis in the center of the Borderlands. Or one that was really exciting to me, PvE, we have guild puzzles, right? Well, there's kind of a Wild vs. Wild equivalent now. You can have, that might come up the week, to complete the Obsidian Sanctum. You know how you've got like the rush at the moment where you pop it and you've got to get 15 people to the end of the course? It could be a lot like that, except in the Obsidian Sanctum. It's basically the same, except you're there when a bunch of other guilds from other servers are also there, and you're fighting each other as you go. This is incentive to go to the Obsidian Sanctum through the new guild system. That's incredible. And then more standard Wild vs. Wild stuff as well, like maybe one week it's to hold locations until, you know, they tier up. And so not only do you capture it, but you want to defend it, and you want to escort Dolyags to get in it. Even more incentive for sort of different kind of non-karma train gameplay in Wild vs. Wild, which is great. And then they even have stuff tailored again at small guilds, like, you know, just escort some Dolyags, and then you'll be able to do your Wild vs. Wild mission. So those are the ideas. Those are the two new categories of missions that they've got, and after a while we'll get more PvE ones too. But here's the really cool thing, and that's the fact you can determine whether your guild is a PvE guild, or Wild vs. Wild guild, or a PvP guild, and depending on what you choose your guild to be, that will affect what missions appear next week. So we all know that guild missions reset like once a week, right? The time for that's actually changing. So if I say I'm a PvP guild, when the missions reset, the game will just give me PvP missions. And I can be a pure PvP guild that gets all the favor and all the stuff that I care about. Or, if I'm a Wild vs. Wild only, I can do the same. And then, lastly, they have the option to be a PvX guild. So you can be a guild that does a mix of all of it. And if you choose to do that, because they want to incentivize people to not just stay in one game type all the time, if you choose to do that, your guild gets a little bit of bonus favor, which means that in the long run, over this, you know, 9-month period, maybe it's not 9 months for you, maybe it's like 8 months or 7 months, because you get those little bits of bonus favor, which is a nice little incentive there. So all that stuff was fantastic. Those are kind of the global guild changes, most of the stuff that was expressed in the early streams. Moving on, let's talk about scribing. So I really don't have too much more to add on scribing. Basic idea here is it's the discipline that's being added to the game, crafting discipline, for Heart of Thorns, and it is built still entirely around guilds. So it's not like creating armor and weapons and items and being selfish. It's creating blueprints so that your guilds can get access to stuff. So scribes create banners. Scribes will be able to create decorations. Scribes will be able to create stuff for the Wild vs. Wild upgrades and war room that Wild vs. Wild guilds will want. It isn't ascended level. It doesn't go to 500 scribing. It only goes to 400 scribing. And the really notable things, we had a section on one of the streams where we got to see how scribing works. Some notable stuff. Number one, there will be die salvaging coming into Guild Wars 2. This is something I'm really happy to see. And hear me out, all right? So the idea is you salvage dies, and then you get hues from those dies, and you use that in scribing. And what this means is that, you know, all those like really crappy dies, the blue dies, the green dies, even to an extent, that really don't have much value, they're always going to have value going forward. They're always going to, because scribes will be buying them to salvage them down. Putting more value on those is important for a lot of reasons. It means that when you get an unidentified die, whether you end up getting a rare one out of it or not, it doesn't matter. You feel like you're going to get some return on your money. But also, for the free-to-play accounts, for the new players coming into the game, the die system, in my opinion, is one of the best things Guild Wars 2 does. It's one of those things that you take for granted after you become a seasoned player, but it's actually a fantastic system. And new players are going to see that, and they're going to want to unlock a lot of dies. So having them be a little bit pricier, rather than just worth nothing, encourages those people to keep playing the game and earn more money, and they stick around for longer because they want more dies. You know, that's more of a fun goal for them. So I think that's really awesome, the way they integrated that. And of course, again, the Heart of Thorns economy, the item economy, is going to go completely out of whack because there's tons of items. Like they revealed that cloth is a thing that is used in scribing. Cloth is already fairly expensive. People will have seen that on the stream, and they will have started buying cloth as quickly as possible, and you get the deal. So they haven't revealed to us all items, but that's basically the place that scribing's in. And the other thing that I didn't really consider, that is pretty cool, is every crafting discipline already in the game has a full chain of back pieces that they can create, right? And that's true for the scribe too. And those have all been shown to us. The last tier is this really elaborate, ridiculous-looking printing press backpack that you sling over your shoulders. which is kind of funny to me because I remember the whole Order of Whispers things with their printing presses, and ArenaNet did kind of a bit of a lore highlight on that at one point, you know, how it was this awesome new invention that had just come to Tyria. And now we're going to be running around with them on our backs, which is always very interesting. So the scribe basically makes stuff that goes into a new guild storage panel. And again, this isn't the same as the treasury, and neither is it the same as the guild bank. The storage is like where all of the items that your guild currently has go. So there are 4 different categories, right? You've got consumables. So consumables is really basic stuff, right? It's like banners and all those consumables we already have and associate with guilds, right? The next one down is the war chest. These are all the world versus world items, okay, that scribes will be making so that people can use them when they're in world versus world. Siege, improvements, tactics, stuff we talked about previously on an earlier video last week. The next section is the decoration section. And these are all the decorations, the things you can place around your guild hall. I'll talk about in just a second. But that's architecture, furniture, lighting, and other things. And then lastly, you've got the arena section as well, which are like decorations dedicated for the arena that your guild can have. And we'll talk about the arena in just a moment too. All right, so first, decorations. Basically, you can buy these from vendors. They have a cost of gold, petrified slivers, or silver, I think it was, which sounds like they're coming from a new map in Heart of Thorns, and karma. Karma's a really interesting one. I want more karma sinks in the game. I've always been very sad that the only time karma is ever relevant to a player, it feels like, is when they go for legendaries. I think that's a real shame considering it's so integrated into Guild Wars 2. Well, karma's going to be a big thing for buying decorations, but that said, this may not stick because one of the biggest bits of feedback Colin mentioned he'd got over the week was that actually, if you think about a PvP-only guild, they're going to want decorations. But there's no real way to earn karma through PvP right now. So what do? Do they force PvPers to go out and play some other stuff? Or unless they just don't get decorations, or are they going to change it? So I would be very happy to see a karma sync come into the game. But I appreciate the problem with PvPers, and I don't know what they're going to do there. But so we did get a really cool stream. You should be seeing the footage of this absolutely in the background right now, which demonstrates the way you place decorations. Now, there is some awesome stuff here. First, the basic mechanics seem kind of clunky, but this is the way it works, right? You choose a decoration, you kind of go into build mode, right? And it changes your skill bar. The skill 1 allows you to like ground target and place the decoration wherever you like. So if it's a basket, if it's a plant pot, if it's, you know, balloons, whatever, you can put it where you like, right? With the skill 1. Then you've got 3 other skills on your skill bar called erasers. And these are like ground targeted icons of different sizes. You've got a small one, a medium one, and a large one. And when you use the eraser, anything that is caught in that ground targeted circle gets deleted and put back into your guild storage. So if you have like a huge area with like a massive junk pile, right? Someone came into your guild and they made a massive junk pile of like tons of decorations. You can go into build mode and use like the large eraser and just delete it all at once. Or if you're actually trying to build a transformer, okay, in your guild hall because you want it to look pretty and you want to make a YouTube video about it, but the top left shoulder of the transformer looks crappy, instead of using the large eraser, you might want to use the really small eraser so you can just remove like a couple of fine details off of it. So they have thought about a few things. I think it still does look a little bit fiddly. Obviously, you can't fly, so you're going to have to build scaffolding to climb up to be able to put fine details on, say, the head of the transformer or whatever, and then remove the scaffolding. Like, there's certainly an element of that. But I think that should just make, if people make really impressive builds in their guild halls, which I absolutely think they will, it just adds that extra level of impress to what they've eventually managed to create. This reminds me a lot of when Halo 3 introduced the idea of the Forge. I don't know how many of you guys ever played that first-person shooter, but this certainly seems like one of those features that is absolutely going to blow open the whole game in a huge way. There will be people that do nothing but build stuff in guild halls. This is fantastic, but it's going to come at a cost. People are going to spend the first little while loving this, and then as time goes on, and people just come to appreciate it's a part of Guild Wars 2, I think ArenaNet are going to get a lot of slack from people because this is the kind of feature that you always want more. You always want more quality of life, more control, more things you can drop, more. And it's going to have to be a thing that they're continually battling against from now on, which is why it doesn't surprise me they have a full-time dedicated guild team from now on. But these range from not just small things. If you're not excited yet, let me be clear. It's not just small stuff like plant pots you can drop. It's giant golden walls and massive props. And they all have collision. You can stack them on top of one another and delete stuff underneath so you have floating islands and you can make jumping puzzles for yourself. They really went all out with this. Now, those more shrewd of you right now might be thinking, well, what potatoes is going to be coming with limits, right? And these things always cripple these systems. So you might be thinking, all right, well, look, you just told me there are balloons you can use as decorations. I bet I won't be able to create a hallway full of balloons. Just nothing but balloons. Balloons as far as the eye can see. Well, this was touched on, as far as I can tell. The devs were a little vague sometimes. It sounds like, though, you can have hundreds, in the order of hundreds, several hundred, of a single type of decoration. So if you want tons of balloons, you can do that. Then you might be thinking, all right, well, surely there's a limit on the number of decorations you can have, right? Like, there has to be a cap there. What if you can only have 50 decorations in the whole hall? So, yeah, I can make a hallway of balloons in one corner of the guild hall, but then there's no others. But they established that too. And supposedly you can have, from what sounds like 1,000 to 2,000 different props and decorations across the entire hall. That is a huge number. They specifically said that there are some caps in place for performance, but they've specifically been chosen to be super, super insanely high, so they're not really relevant to many people. I think they'll be surprised. People will go ham with this, and they will push it to its limit, and they will hit these caps. But, you know, the idea of having over 2,000 decorations, potentially tons of them being giant guild walls that create massive mazes throughout this massive map, I think should satisfy a lot of people. One thing to consider that is a bit of a negative with this system is there's no way to save. So if you do build like this insanely awesome maze, or if you set up your guild arena to have like a really cool configuration with traps and stuff, the game can't save it. So if someone comes along and deletes all that stuff, it's gone forever. You have to be very careful about who you give permission to delete stuff, because they can just undo your work, and ArenaNet can't roll that back. There's no like way of saving a schematic or a specific setup for your arena or your guild hall. If it's been made, that's how it is in that moment. And if it gets reorganized or changed or shuffled, it's gone forever until you build it manually again yourself. And no two builds are ever going to be exactly the same, as we all know for any of us who have really participated in this kind of stuff. So that is sort of a drawback. But again, maybe it just adds a little bit more to how special it feels when you have a really cool setup in your guild hall. And maybe you're just never going to want to get rid of it. I'm really not sure. So that's decorations. Really exciting. Custom made, player created jumping puzzles and all manner of other nonsense. We could have challenge series on this YouTube channel where I make people make me a jumping puzzle, and then we have a video where I try it and see if I can get to the end. Or not only that, but I can fill up a squad of 50 people and we can all visit your guild hall all at once, and we can all jump and try out your puzzle, right? Does that get you excited yet, or what? It's going to be fantastic. So let's move on to the arena. Arena does have some differences. I believe before they told us that there were tons of teams you could have. There are actually only 3 teams now. There's the red, the blue, and the green team. So you can have 3 teams now, unlike in structured PvP, which is nice. It is a benefit. But I was kind of looking forward to, you know, the idea of having 8 teams, and you can have 8 teams, each of 2 people, and you can go, you know, rumble pit or whatever in the arena. It seems like there are more limits there. But in addition to red, blue, and green team, you can go on an invulnerable team, and, you know, an invulnerable player can run around dropping decorations everywhere, or being kind of a god. You can play like a cat and mouse game type, where you have an invulnerable team of cats trying to chase a vulnerable team of mice who have lots of stealth and stuff, and they've got to run around the arena. And then there's also a free-for-all team as well. So there is some play there. Again, this is like you can create your own custom game types in here. It was confirmed that the guild hall arena is all PvE balance. All of that PvP build stuff and amulets and that isn't available. And in the end, really, why would you want it to be? If you want to do that, then you have PvP as it stands, right? Structured PvP as it stands. But there's a lot you can do here. You can still have the shield where it creates a big ring around the arena where people can fall down, which you can turn on or off. There are a specific type of decoration called obstacles, I think, which you place in the arena, and they're like turrets that can knock people back, or flame turrets that do damage to people, or even just random things you can drop in that you can interact with. So they gave us an example of some torches you can put in the arena, which you can press F on, and it turns the torch on or off. And you're probably thinking, what's fun about that? That really doesn't sound very interesting. But no, really, you can use that with a couple of honor rolls, maybe, to create some great game types. You can have, basically, assault or capture the flag or whatever by simulating it with these flags. You know, a player gets into enemy territory. If they manage to press F on the torch, then that counts as them, you know, setting the bomb. And then other people have to turn the torch off. Otherwise, they win. And, you know, you design an arena that's set up this way. Or you set up like a maze-like arena, and it's like one person alone has to get through all the torches in a certain time limit. I was thinking about all these crazy game types as the stream was going along, and then Colin just kind of came up with a very basic thing. Oh, you can use this to keep score of matches. which is also true. You know, you could do like a best out of 3 and then you just light a torch of the team that's winning each time. So there's just so much custom-made, community-based content that can come out of this. I am just as blown away seeing these streams as I was when I saw the original information in those blog posts a while ago. Speaking of, like, player caps, again, let's talk about limits. The arena, actually, it doesn't look that big to me. They say it's about 75% of the Obsidian Sanctum's size in World versus World. And it doesn't look to me like, if you want to do a 20v20 GVG, and people are looking for the arenas for this, right? For very good reason, because currently you're stuck in World versus World. You can only GVG against people on the opposing servers in your matchup, and that sucks, right? With guild halls, if the arena's big enough, you can GVG in those, and you can GVG any guild from any server at any time, you know, as long as it's NA or EU, which is a huge step up and can really help that community. But the thing is, if you want to take it to the 20v20 size, I don't think it really looks like it's got enough space. Colin said it can feel like it gets a bit tight at that point, but 15v15s certainly seem possible. And on the topic of 20v20s, there is actually note of a new map that will be coming to the game, not with Heart of Thorns, but later, where they're going to have an even bigger map, potentially, than the Obsidian Sanctum, specifically for people to do their GVGs and stuff in. So, for the meantime, you'll be able to do it at least in the arena, and then they're still looking into it, which is pretty great to hear. Funny little note as well, while you were watching the arena stuff, you actually got to see an enemy dev, and instead of displaying their level 80, it actually displayed their number of mastery points. A feature we heard about a long-ass time ago, have had no word on it since, and that does still seem to be a part of the game. So this person had 174 mastery points, and that is kind of that new version of Prestige instead of level 80, which just doesn't really mean anything in the game, which is pretty cool. Early comments in these streams mentioned it would take about 2 months to build the arena as a part of the global guild stuff, but a lot of people were like, no, the arena's way too cool, can that be dropped down? So they did drop it, and now it's much, much, much quicker. Less than even a single month, which is great. That's pretty much it, guys. That's what they showed us from the guild halls. There was a day 4 of streams as well, where there was just a lot of Q&A, but I've kind of littered the information we gleaned from that through the rest of this video. But generally, compared to the original blogs we had and guilds as a system now, things are a lot more simplified. Like Resonance, this currency you get, which allows you to supercharge and build stuff quickly. You know, that's very much more basic now. It's basically do guild missions each week, you earn resonance, you earn favor, and then you can spend it, you know, to supercharge and build stuff really quickly. So the early blog post mentioned a system of being able to get guild armor and weapons and stuff, and that's simplified too, you know, unique to each hall, and I think that's probably quite necessary because this is such a huge feature. Like, this one team has done an insane amount for Heart of Thorns, and to just have it thrown at us, it seemed incredibly complicated, and things seem a lot more basic now. But there you go, guys. That's the big Guildhall Roundup. I did promise it to you earlier on in the week. I'll keep you up to date with stuff about the betas in particular as well as we go forward. What do you think, guys? Like, really, what I want to know on this video, okay, give me your specific comments and ideas on actual game types you can make either through the decorations or through the obstacles and stuff for arenas. What kind of crazy game types do people have as ideas? Because if you've got good ones, these can be things that end up going up on the channel and being fun things we can do like on a weekly basis after Heart of Thorns comes out. And I'm so pumped about that. Anyway, cheers. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you're having a good weekend. I'll see you tomorrow.